Good evening. And welcome. On behalf of the trustees, faculty, and staff of Rockingham Community College, I want to welcome you to our campus. I hope you were able to find your way in this evening without too much trouble, and I hope that you will return to our campus as often as you possibly can. We welcome all groups to our campus, and we think that this truly is the community's college. I don't think I introduced myself. I'm Michael Helmick. I'm the president of Rockingham Community College, and I personally am very pleased that you are here. This evening, we are gathered for the third in a series of 4 RCC See You in September events. 2 weeks ago, we had the musical group, the Catalinas, performing on campus. And a large crowd enjoyed that performance, even though we had to move it inside because of the impending rainstorm. Last week, a very enthusiastic crowd met over in the administration building for the unveiling of the Lionel and Maggie Cook art collection. It's a stunning collection of international art, and we would welcome each of you to come there at your convenience and view that. It is still on display and will be there on permanent display. This week, we are pleased to bring you this political forum. And next week, we will be hosting a Civil War reenactment on the college grounds, so we think that we have provided something for just about everybody. Pulling this forum together takes a community effort, and RCC had a lot of help in doing that. That group that helped us with this is the Political Forum Committee, and they are listed in your program, but I'm going to mention them briefly. And if they are available to stand, it looks like many of them are in the back, I would ask them to do that. But those people are Mark Bumgarner, who is with DyeStar Chemical. Mark is back there. Gay Barber Clifton, who is with Rockingham Community College. Ann Griffin of the Western Chamber of Commerce, and I think Ann was out in the hall when I saw her. Sarah McGuire with the Eden Chamber. I saw Sarah earlier. And Diane Sawyer from the Reidsville Chamber of Commerce, and last but not least, Jean Ann Wood from the Eden Chamber of Commerce. So let's give that group a big round of applause. One of the greatest things about being an American is that we all get to take part in the process of selecting who will lead us. All across the world, the democratic way of life is under assault. I just heard on the news this morning that in Afghanistan, the Taliban is spreading the word that in more than 200 years that the United States has practiced democracy, it has only brought us a morally corrupt society with no rules or guidelines. Oppressive regimes prefer a dictatorial way of life with no room for free expression. Americans embrace the concept of the popular vote, an election process that is based on knowledge. You are here this evening to add to your knowledge about these candidates who will present to you later on. And I applaud you for taking the time, your time, to find out more about these candidates. I know I am pleased to have grown up in a country where we have the right to express our opinions, and since we all have the right to express our opinion, it is important that in gatherings like this, like our forum this evening, that we treat one another with respect. Our candidates will be asked questions and they will respond to them, respond to those questions. Members of the audience are certainly free to form their own opinions about our candidates' worthiness to hold the office to which they aspire, but I would request that all members of the audience show their respect for our candidates this evening. Let the candidates have their say, and perhaps more importantly, let those around you hear what is being said by those candidates. Thank you. It's also my pleasure this evening to introduce our moderator, who is Mr. Alan Johnson. Alan is the editorial page editor of the News and Record. He is a Greensboro native and a Dudley High School alumnus who resides in Greensboro. He relishes the chance to discuss issues that affect his hometown's future. He joined the News and Record in 1987 as the features editor. In 1992, he became sports editor, and in 1999, editorial page editor. Alan leads editorial board meetings, edits most editorials, and writes some editorials. He also screens letters to the editor, so it's his fault if your letter doesn't get in there, and writes a weekly column. Alan is a graduate of UNC Chapel Hill, where he received an undergraduate degree in English and a master's degree in journalism. He has taught part-time at a variety of area colleges, including UNC Chapel Hill, UNC Greensboro, North Carolina Central, and currently North Carolina A&T. In 1996, he taught a short course in newspaper management for newsroom executives in Zambia. In addition, he volunteers at Jackson Middle School and serves on the board of Big Brothers and Big Sisters and Youth Focus Incorporated. He is a model train buff and a member of the Carolina Model Railroaders. He also likes to read, especially biographies and science fiction, goes to the movie obsessively, I am told, and is an avid jogger. Ladies and gentlemen, Alan Johnson.
Now, I want to say a few things about our format tonight, and then we'll get underway. It is an honor and a pleasure to be among you again. I can't remember how many of these I've done. I think the last one I did was here 2 years ago. And I want to tell you that tonight we'll have, we had asked everybody from the president on down, the presidential candidates on down, to be here tonight. I'm disappointed to tell you that neither presidential hopeful will be able to appear, but I'm sure they send their regrets. We will have candidates from all down the ballot that you will be voting for here in Rockingham County. And I'm going to take some time to introduce them right now. Most of the time you will not have to look at my face, thank goodness. I'm going to be facing this way. But again, we ask that you listen, we ask that you respect the candidates and listen to what they have to say, and we ask that you respect each other during the course of this forum tonight. And without further ado, I'll take my seat here and I will introduce the candidates. And candidates, if you could please just acknowledge where you are so that people can see you and know who you are if they can't read the name tags that are in front of you. First, we have candidates for a county commissioner where there are 3 seats available. Keith Duncan, James Kallam, Leanna Lawson, Zane Cardwell, Mark Richardson, Eric Smith. We have a candidate for District 26 in the North Carolina Senate, Mr. Bobby Stanley. We have candidates for the District 65 seat in the North Carolina House, William Osborne and Burt Jones. We have candidates for District 91 in the North Carolina House, Nelson Cole and Brian Holloway. We have a candidate for Lieutenant Governor, Dan Forrest. And we have a candidate for North Carolina Superintendent of Public Instruction, who is not here yet, John Tedesco. We also had invited, and she had accepted, June Atkinson, the other candidate for Superintendent of Public Instruction. She was scheduled to attend, but today she notified us that she had a death in the family, and so she will not be here tonight. Okay, right on time. Mr. Tedesco, welcome.
Thank you. I apologize for that.
Okay, no problem. You're right on time. Now, we'd also like to note that many of the candidates for the Rockingham County School Board had a previous engagement scheduled tonight, and they were not able to attend the forum, at least not at this point. However, many are expected to attend the reception afterward, and they look forward to having the opportunity to speak to you. Also here is Rebecca Cipriani, who is running unopposed to return her position as Register of Deeds. Ms. Cipriani will be glad to speak with you during the reception following tonight's forum. Ms. Cipriani, here? Okay, well, we expect her. Now, briefly, our format tonight will be as follows. Each candidate will be allowed to make a 1-minute opening statement. I will then ask a series of questions to specific groups of candidates, with each candidate having 1 minute to respond. Following that, I will take written questions submitted by the audience and ask the candidates. Again, candidates will have 1 minute for their responses. These questions will be taken from cards that will be circulating among audience members, and you'll have the opportunity to fill them out. We will conclude the forum with each candidate having 90 seconds at the end of our session for closing remarks. Haynes Dallas, who is sitting here, is perhaps the most important man in the room. He will serve as our official timekeeper tonight. He will raise a yellow sign indicating, candidates, that you have 30 minutes left to wrap up your remarks. When you have reached your allotted time, the timekeeper will raise a stop sign indicating it's time for you to end your remarks. We appreciate your cooperation in adhering to these allotted times. We both noted that the signs are bigger this year. Now we'll go ahead and get underway with opening remarks for County Commissioner. Again, we have 3 seats, and we'll start with Mr. Duncan.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here tonight. My name's Keith Duncan, and I want to thank the Chambers for putting on this debate tonight. I live in Eden, and I'm married to Lisa Adams Duncan. I believe she's here tonight. I have 2 daughters that are grown, and one's a teacher, the other works for the state controller. Proud of both of those. My wife and I together have operated a construction business for about 30 years. We install water sewer lines and build pump stations throughout western North Carolina. I would like to ask for your support tonight. I'm running for commissioner. I do have 12 years experience. I've served before. I've served on many boards in the county, DSS, Council on Aging. I'm a member of First Presbyterian Church in Eden. I'm also on the First Citizens Bank Rockingham County Board of Directors, and I think my business experience will help me with making decisions on behalf of the taxpayers of Rockingham County. Thank you.
And next, Mr. James Kallam.
My name is James Kallam. I live right up here above Bethany School. I lived in this county most all my life, and for the last 4 years, I've worked for you dedicatedly as a servant of the people as one of your county commissioners. I worked on several boards and served in this county in various capacities and things. I've ran a business in this county for the last 40-some years, and currently I have 3 different companies that I've got started, and I just come back from Georgia the other day. I started one down there. But I want to tell you what, in this county, I've worked hard to make sure that we have a caring and promoting county. We work for the citizens of our county to create economic opportunity for you. When I put on my card that I would work for the people in this county, that's exactly what I meant. For the last 4 years, I've worked for you dedicatedly to make sure that we keep things that belong to us in our county. If you look at what we've done, I worked to promote to make sure we kept our landfill here for the people in our county. I did that. I cut your property taxes this year to make it cheaper for that, and we promoted good economic development inside. Thank you.
Ms. Leanna Lawson.
I'm Leanna Lawson, and I'm a native of Rockingham County. I was born in Ruffin, and I've lived there quite a bit of time. But my husband's been in the military, and we traveled for about 22 years. We have 2 adult married children and 5 marvelous grandchildren. And I have worked in many areas in Rockingham County. And most of all, I'm very proud to say that I retired here from an associate professor from the nursing department here at Rockingham Community College. I've been on many boards, and so I know how to make decisions properly. And I would appreciate your vote, and I feel that I am knowledgeable and I will be a good candidate for Rockingham County Commissioner. Thank you.
Mr. Zane Cardwell.
Good evening. I'm Zane Cardwell, and I'm a candidate for County Commissioner. And the biggest thing that I think we need in this county is jobs. We need to get people back to work. We're in a county where 20% of our working people are unemployed. I'm not a politician. I'm a business guy, and I know how to create jobs. I just need the county to open up their doors and be more business friendly, to allow businesses to come in here and put our people to work. Jobs will take care of 90% of the problems that we have in this county. I'll stand by that from now till doomsday. I'm in the private sector. I've spent the last 25 years there. I've worked for major corporations down to small businesses. I'm working at a small business incubator right now up in Stonewall, where we have had some success in creating small businesses there. I would appreciate your vote, and I'll do for the county what we've done up there. Thank you.
Mr. Mark Richardson.
I'm very happy to be here tonight, and some 45 years ago when I was in the western part of this county pulling first primings, I couldn't foresee this happening. But I couldn't foresee a lot of things happening that have happened since that time, because those were good times. I know there have been some good times since, but right now there's some needs that we need to address. I'm primarily interested in working on the economic problems, seeking new and innovative ways of improving our educational system, and taking full advantage of the marvelous resources we have, which include marvelous resources in people. And for all of that, I think I bring some experience to provide some innovation, energy, and certainly a caring attitude.
And Mr. Eric Smith.
My name's Eric Smith, and I'm running for County Commissioner. Mark actually just said everything that I'd like to say. I agree with him 100% on that. I would like to thank the Chamber for having us out tonight. I'd like to thank y'all for taking time out of y'all's busy schedule to come out and listen to these candidates and support our republic as it was established by our United States Constitution that just celebrated its 225th anniversary this week. With that being said, if elected to the County Commission, I would still use the Constitution as a basis in making my decisions. It worked 225 years ago, and it still works today, and it works on a local level. My name is Eric Smith. I live in the Ruffin community. I'm married to Miss Kelly Baker. She's been here her entire life. Her family's been here their entire life. I've only been here about 10 years, so I got here as quick as I could. I love Rockingham County. My daughter's a student here at RCC. I have a son at Lincoln Elementary School, and I just want a better life and a better Rockingham County for them so that they can have a better future. My name's Eric Smith. I'd appreciate your vote in November.
We'll move now to the opening statement from our District 26 Senate candidate, Bobby Stanley.
Thank you. I'm Bob Stanley, running for District 26 State Senate. As a candidate for the State Senate, I am very concerned about our economy in this state. Jobs, education, environment, infrastructure is very important, folks. With unemployment at 9.6%, it's the 5th or 6th highest, tied with South Carolina in the country. Something is wrong, and Raleigh needs to fix it. We need to, jobs, education, labor skills go hand in hand. One will not work without the other. I hope tonight to be able to address these issues through the questions I am asked and the responses that I give. Thank you.
For the North Carolina House, District 65, Mr. William Osborne.
Good evening, and I'd like to thank all of you for being here and participating in our democracy. Too often, we see people standing on the sidelines. You are the exception to that rule. I am William Osborne. I'm here tonight with my charming bride, Barbara, and my son, William. I have made the decision to run for the State House, having looked at the economic and environmental statistics that are present in Rockingham County. Rockingham County is a place that has tremendous potential that's not being maximized to meet the needs of the people in this county. We have a wonderful community college here that I'm proud to say I attended, my son attended, my brother attended, and my father attended. We have to look at education and jobs as going hand in hand, and at a time when business absolutely is demanding high quality stop sign.
Well, we'll have to move on, but maybe there'll be an opportunity to expand. Mr. Burt Jones, also for District 65, rather.
Thank you all for coming out tonight. It is an honor and a privilege for me to have served Rockingham County as one of our 2 state representatives, along with Brian Holloway. Along with Phil Berger in the Senate, we've worked together to represent the common sense, conservative values that we believe most of our people hold. If I can say one thing to you, I would say this: I've kept my word. I've always been honest with our citizens about where I stand. As a county commissioner, I did that, and as a state representative, I've done that. People that have supported me have said that they've not been disappointed. Some that did not support me before have become some of our best supporters. Others that disagree with our basic values will continue to vote for someone else. But as long as I serve as your representative, I'll continue to be honest with you, and you'll know where I stand. Tonight, I ask you to stand again with me. Thank you, and again, thank you for coming out tonight.
For NC House District 91, Mr. Nelson Cole.
Thank you, Alan, and I want to thank you, too, for participating in this, because you're taking a lot of time out of your life, and I appreciate that. And for those of you that have attended out here, I thank you for that also, being a part of your government. I think we're at a crossroads in North Carolina with regards to the direction which the state needs to go. And that will be manifested tonight in what you hear from the candidates that are up here speaking. That crossroads is going to be up to you as to how you want to go. Rockingham County, unfortunately, is in rural North Carolina, which is a part of the state that doesn't get the opportunity that the others do along the interstates. That's what we'll be talking about tonight.
Also in District 91 for the House, Mr. Brian Holloway.
Well, thank you. We appreciate everyone coming out tonight, and I want to thank the Chamber for hosting this. I also want to say it's been an honor and privilege to be one of the 2 State House representatives for Rockingham County these past 8 years. I really enjoyed serving with Representative Burt Jones sitting to my right this past session. A little bit about myself. I grew up on a family farm. I taught high school U.S. history for 6 years prior to joining the General Assembly. I also want to thank my wife and my family for coming out with me tonight. My wife is also an educator, and we just look forward to having a conversation with you. I'm sure we'll talk about our records and talk about what we've done, but we do look forward to the conversation. Thank you for having us.
Now we move to a candidate for North Carolina Lieutenant Governor.
My name is Dan Forrest, and I want to be your next Lieutenant Governor. I live in Raleigh with my wife, Alice. We've been married for about 21 years now. We have 4 kids, ages 19 down to 7. We're a homeschool family. We've done that for about 16 years now. That's been a great blessing, a great gift to our family. I'm not a politician as well. I know that's been said several times up here. This is a critical time in America. My background is business. I'm an architect. I was a senior partner and office president with the largest architecture firm in the state, and I believe we're at a time where we need business-minded solutions to help solve the great challenges that we face in North Carolina, and they are quite complex. As an architect, we are visionaries, we're planners, we're creative problem solvers, we're consensus builders. That's what we do for a living. That's the kind of skills that I believe are necessary at the executive leadership level in Raleigh, and that's what I plan on taking to Raleigh with me.
For North Carolina Superintendent of Public Instruction, Mr. John Tedesco.
Well, I'm honored to be here with all of you this evening. I am John Tedesco, and I'm running for superintendent because I believe our children deserve better. First of all, a little bit about me. I'm a conservative Christian family man. My wife Jenny and I have a son in our public schools as well. But also, and throughout my career over many years, I've spent serving hundreds of thousands of children in a variety of initiatives, managing many institutions, whether it was working in the university environment, in children's charities, or in national nonprofits. And I currently serve on the Wake County School Board, the largest school system in North Carolina, with 150,000 children and a $1.4 billion budget, where I was able to bring conservative, common sense reforms that helped families and children ahead of bureaucrats. Again, I think we need to get out of the bureaucratic mindset in education. I think all the answers can't come from Raleigh. We have to empower our local communities and serve our children better. Thank you.
Thank you for those introductions. Now we'll delve right into the issue questions. Our first question is going to be directed to the candidates for Rockingham County Commissioner. And that question is, how will you focus on the infrastructure within the county to promote growth of new businesses while supporting existing businesses? And Mr. Cardwell, you have the honor of going first.
Okay, it's really simple. You know, you've got to have the foundation. If you want to be successful in business, you've got to have a business plan and set the foundation out here. Without the foundation, it'll all collapse. Infrastructure is very important. The county has got to step up and do their part and become business friendly. I've had businesses talk to me in the past year telling me that Rockingham County is the most unfriendly county they've ever encountered trying to start a business. We've got to change that. That's got to be changed right now. The next thing we've got to do, we've got to work in our education system. We need skilled labor. Dr. Helmick here at RCC has started on the right track, developing machinists, electricians, welders. Those are the people that work with their hands and build things. That's the people it's going to take to build an economy.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to Mr. Richardson.
Well, in regards to infrastructure, I think one of the main things we need to do is coordinate with the state agencies and also keep in mind federal monies. Our infrastructure is large, fairly large county, and we have needs, especially in the business sector, but also with our residents and with our educational institutions. And I think the main thing to do is look farther down the road than just tomorrow, look for the long term, and see what the DOT and other outside agencies plan for us. And we need to plan to use those assets in coordination with our own, and without sacrificing the constraints that our budget has given on. We need to keep up with the monies that we have and not overextend inappropriately.
Mr. Smith.
It's painfully obvious that the current method that we're using isn't working. The Partnership for Economic Development and Tourism currently sits on $5 billion worth of land that nobody wants and nobody's interested in. They haven't actively pursued small or medium-sized businesses, and that's something that needs to be looked at. I also feel like we can address zoning issues, such as the zoning requirements that are too restrictive and don't do anything to help out the public good. And I think that looking at those issues, along with looking at restructuring our current method of attracting businesses, is something that could be done, and we could actually do a lot in Rockingham County to bring some medium and small-sized businesses. We also need to support RCC. Zane touched on it in his comments, and I've been an adjunct welding instructor out here in the past. So as a welder, I am one of those skilled laborers, and we do need to concentrate more on the machinists, the welders, the plumbers, because those are the skilled laborers. That is the workforce.
Mr. Duncan.
Well, as a former county commissioner, I can assure everybody here tonight that that's always the top priority for the county board, because economic development's always on the top of the list. And I can assure you that the board we have now, that's probably been on the top of their list. You know, the county taxpayers have made a multi-million-dollar investment in Rockingham County over the years. With infrastructure, we've had water and sewer line installed on 220. We've had the industrial park in Reidsville that's ready for new plants. We have empty buildings in Eden that's ready for new industry. We need to work our legislative delegation hard in Raleigh through the Department of Commerce to keep bringing jobs to Rockingham County, because that's where we get the initial field from is Raleigh on new industry locating. We have abundance of water and sewer, and you can't do it without working with the municipalities because it's a team effort throughout the county, and thank you.
Mr. Kallam.
As everyone I know is well aware that's sitting here tonight, that the economy in the state of North Carolina, the whole nation, and most of the world is not sitting very well. That means we're going to have to redefine ourselves and look at what we have, look at our strengths and weaknesses, and work on them. We could work with county growth within this county to help develop small businesses them and work with them aggressively so that they can pursue and go to where we need to go. It's impractical to go out here to expect that we're going to attract companies that's going to hire 2,000 or 3,000 people or even 400, 500, 600. That's aggressively, it's not going to work or compete. That means we're going to have to work with the people we have within our county to help them to promote more jobs and activities. In the last 4 years, we have worked aggressively just that way, and we have worked with a lot of companies to recruit people here. We have the land available. We even have some companies now that are looking to come to us. We're working very hard to get them here to do that. And like I say, the consultants are looking to do this. They want us to develop the land and set it up for them, and we are doing that. We need to nurture and grow aggressively in our county. Thank you.
Ms. Lawson.
Thank you. We have the people and we have the correct place to train our people, Rockingham Community College. And we have water and sewage, but we can work together and train our people and have qualified workers for these companies that want to come into Rockingham County. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're going to move to our next question, a current issue question. And this question will be directed to each of the candidates tonight. We will start with NC Senate District 26, Mr. Stanley. The question is, community colleges are one of the keys to our economic recovery. What can the state do to strengthen community colleges and maintain affordability?
Is it on?
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me? Okay. First of all, whatever we do, we've got to pay for it, folks. And to be able to do this, not only for our community colleges, all our universities, we need tax reform in this state. We need to get to where we can compete with the other states, the whole world. If we can get our unemployment rate down to 7%, we'll have the money, probably $1 billion or more, to do this. I am very favorable to education, including community colleges. This college, they floated a bond issue in this county in 1963, 8 cents on 100. Every precinct passed it except one, Dan Valley. They almost passed it there. Today, folks, we'd have a hard time doing that. We have got to, it takes money. We've got to figure out a way to fund them. Thank you.
Now we move to House 65, and we'll start with Mr. Jones.
Thank you for the question. I have worked closely with our community college presidents here, Dr. Helmick here and Dr. Keys before him, on some important bills in the past session to help community colleges that we can't go through in 60 seconds. But I would say, for one thing, in education and in community colleges as well, we need more local control. Our college here may not have the same need as all of the colleges across the state. I think another thing we have to do is look at the big picture, and we need to adopt priority spending in Raleigh. We have limited resources. We need to make sure that we're budgeting wisely so that we can give them what they need and let them choose how best to use it. So we're about out of time, but I think we need to work together locally and hire good people and let them do their jobs and give them some basic oversight perhaps, but we don't need Raleigh and Washington running the show.
Also in District 65, Mr. Osborne.
If I wanted to strengthen a community college, the first thing I would do is remember why we have a community college. That's to educate students. The first thing I would do to strengthen this college is rescind the repressive tuition increases that were imposed on the students by this past legislature. Our system is designed to move people upward. I think all of you probably had the opportunity to read in the Greensboro paper the number of students who will not be returning to college this fall. I know my time's getting short. Therefore, I'm going to talk a little faster. We have to make college affordable. We have to make vocational training affordable. And we've got to remember who we're doing this for, and that is the students. It's not for us. Thank you.
Now we'll move to House 91, Mr. Holloway.
We're blessed to have one of the greatest community college systems in the entire country, and this past session, as being the Education Appropriations Chair, I had the pleasure of working with Dr. Rawls, who's the president of the entire system, to try to help get the funding that they requested. Also, I think that we can help them to grow by promoting vocational education. We desperately need more kids in our high school area to focus on a trade. Shakespeare and chemistry may not be their cup of tea, and we need to partner with the community colleges to help them grow and put more vocational education back in our school system.
Thank you very much, Alan. Folks, it's very simple. Had a 26% enrollment increase in 2011, but a 10% reduction in resources. It doesn't work that way. You've got to fund it before you can make it happen. And that's where we are today.
Now to Lieutenant Governor and Mr. Forrest, and let's see how our technology is working.
Great, hopefully it's working now. Well, one of the roles of Lieutenant Governor is to sit on the Community College Board in North Carolina. I agree with Representative Holloway that we need to, it doesn't start there. We need to start at the K-12 level. We need to have a stronger vocational program in our K-12 schools for those students who, one, either don't want to go on to a four-year degree or can't go on to a four-year degree for some reason. We also need to expand our apprenticeship program in North Carolina. Most people in North Carolina don't even know we have an apprenticeship program, but we do, and it resides with the Department of Labor. You know, we have nearly 60 campuses across the state for our community colleges. They're right there in the locations where our people are. You don't have to travel across the state. You don't have to pick up your job and move. So we need to have partnerships with our universities as well in the state to combine with those community college campuses so we can offer a more diverse selection of degrees at the community college level.
As superintendent, obviously, my focus would be on the K-12 system, and I think it's critical that we send children to our community college systems prepared to succeed. Right now, 1 in 5 of our children are not graduating annually, but of the ones who are graduating, 2/3 of them who go into our community college systems need remediation. That costs you as taxpayers twice, that costs those children twice in lost opportunities where they're falling behind. 1/3 of our children can't read on grade level. So we have to ensure, A, that they're college ready and expand alternative pathways for them in high school. Our first bullet priority is increasing alternative education opportunities, expanded vocational programs, apprenticeship programs, early college initiatives, and more. We have to get out of this one-size-fits-all education and ensure that our children are prepared to succeed for the world ahead.
Now we'll move on to the Rockingham County Commissioner candidates, and we'll start with Mr. Duncan.
The best way I know to address the college is from the local level. I think the county commissioners have always had a good relationship with working with the college, especially on capital improvements. I know the funds have been short the last few years, but it's one thing we can all be assured of. This is, and I've said it right here on this stage before, this is probably, in my opinion, one of the best community colleges in North Carolina. This is our best valuable asset that we have. And with all the new alternatives they're trying, the new programs, especially early college, and probably in every family, if it's not the immediate family, you have a family member down the line that's got a service provided to them by this college. So I think it's the state's job to make sure the funds keep coming here, and the county commissioners try to work with the college administrative staff on looking after the capital needs.
Mr. Kallam.
The colleges and things today and everything get exactly what they need on the resources. Here recently we progressed and looked at they needed $10.4 million to do the upgrades here at this university into what needs to be done. In a practical sense, the county don't have this kind of money. We have to work very hard to look at what they do need and work with them and work to ensure to make sure they get the things they can still operate. He come to talk to us, and he made sure that we understood the developments and places they need. We set a priority, and we started working on doing just that. Today, I want you to know the college has started an educational system that is really today's predating about any university around here. We're working to educate our workforce today to comply with the demand of industry, to make sure that we have everyone educated to where we meet the industries and the needs. These companies come into our county, they're ready and wanting someone that is ready to go to work for them. And today, our university right here is educating our kids to do just that. See, we're really blessed and lucky to have them to what we're doing today. They're coming to our college and hiring people right out of this college. Thank you.
Ms. Lawson.
Thank you. I feel that our community college here, Rockingham Community College, gives a good education and a good foundation for our students. I know because I'm a retired associate professor from here. We have the early college, and we have over 100 other professions that they can get education from here at the college. And we know that funding has to be available to make these students come to school, because some have to work, some don't work, because this is the only way they can get an education is to come to the community college. And I think that we can do this because our college is a good college.
Mr. Cardwell.
I support RCC with what they are doing right now with the technical skills that they're trying to teach here. I'm sorry, but I still go back to jobs. We need the jobs here, and to get the jobs here, we've got to have a skilled labor force. So I'm very supportive of what this group is doing here now. And this group can still be a stepping stone to a four-year university. It can do both and be very profitable at both of them. But we've got to have those technical skills, and I commend Dr. Helmick again for taking the steps to get these jobs brought in here by teaching these skills in this college here, because that's what people are looking for now. And I'd like to address one other thing when you get into the K through 12. Technology is a wonderful tool out there, but we need to teach our young children how to reason, how to think, how to problem solve, then introduce them to technology to show them it's easier.
Mr. Richardson.
Well, first, I think our RCC in particular in this case, absolutely essential. The cost of a four-year education is beyond the means of many of our citizenry, and RCC specifically helps bridge that gap. They're essential for the training purposes that you've heard previously. How best to support them is to broadcast this fact, all the good things that they're doing, to utilize the space. I applaud using the space here at the college for a variety of uses. It makes it more functional. I also think it's important to encourage collaboration between other institutions, especially our own secondary system, and seek ways to reduce the need for remediation. And I think that requires collaboration with the college and the secondary system. And finally, of course, fiscal support appropriate to our budget has to be considered at every juncture.
Mr. Smith.
I am a product of the community college system in the state of North Carolina. My father just retired from Forsyth Tech after 29 years of service. As I said earlier, I've taught adjunct here at RCC. My wife attended RCC. I've taken classes here. My daughter is currently enrolled here now as a transfer student. I honestly believe in this institution. I believe that it is a great asset to this community, and we need to do everything we can to support it within our fiscal means. I believe with the current trustees that we have, I believe with Dr. Helmick at the head of the college here, that they are also aware of the fiscal aspect that is needed to provide the best education at the best cost, so we all get the best bang for our buck here at RCC. If elected, I will do all I can to support this college and all the programs that it has to offer. And we need to continue to do that, because that is the way we will grow economic development.
Now we'll move on to another issue question. This question will be directed to the statewide and the North Carolina House and Senate candidates. And we'll start with Mr. Tedesco. The question is, with expected revenue shortfalls, what are your 2013-2014 budget solutions to keep North Carolina's economy growing?
Well, in my particular role as state superintendent, the focus would be on education. And I can tell you in Wake County, we have a $1.4 billion budget. It's the 16th largest school system in America. And over the past 2 years, I've managed to cut over $100 million with my colleagues without cutting a single teacher. We gave teacher bonuses, we put $32 million back into the classrooms, and doubled our fund balance because we trimmed a lot of the waste and the bureaucracy. In Raleigh, we have a State Department of Public Instruction that is sometimes a joke. They call it the Pink Palace, with 800 bureaucrats spending nearly $400 million. They spent millions of dollars on the last several years on technology upgrades for the Pink Palace, training conference centers on Ocracoke Island, while classrooms across North Carolina went without textbooks and teachers had to buy their own supplies. So I will go in there strong and trim a lot of that waste, push that money back out to our local communities, increase local control, and allow those dollars to get to our classrooms where it's critical.
Now we'll move to Mr. Forrest.
Well, the greatest challenge that we have is really that we have a spending problem, not a revenue problem in North Carolina. We have increased our spending drastically over the last 30 years in this state, and so we certainly need to get our spending under control, and our General Assembly has done a fantastic job of that over the last couple of years. Constitutionally, they had to balance the budget. They cut $3.5 billion out of that budget to do that. That was the fiscally responsible thing to do. But what we really need to focus on is getting the economy back on track. We have the 5th highest unemployment rate in the nation in North Carolina. We have corporate income tax that's the highest in the Southeast. We have a gas tax that's the highest in the Southeast. Personal income tax rate that's the highest in the Southeast. I believe over time we need to eliminate the corporate income tax rate. We need to reduce our gas tax to be competitive with our Southeast neighbors. And we need to create a small income tax bracket for our small business owners who file their income taxes under that personal income tax rate. That'll put people back to work. That'll put money back in the pockets of our business owners. That'll generate more activity in the economy, and that'll put more revenue into the government, and we'll be able to do the things that we need to do here in our state.
Mr. Cole. Mr. Cole.
Thank you. I think one of the issues that we have today is people that are putting the budget together are looking at education as an expense. Education is not an expense, it's an investment. And when you have a speaker that makes a comment that we're going to turn the Pink Palace, as was referred to, into condos, we've got a serious problem. There is a lot of supervision takes place with education at that point. Education is really the pathway to jobs. And if we don't educate, we're not going to have the jobs. It's not a chicken or the egg story. Education comes before those good jobs will come.
Mr. Holloway.
Well, thank you. As one of the appropriations chairs in the North Carolina House, I can say that the last report that I heard shows us to be about $26 million short next year. First, that's a lot better than the $3 billion with a B dollars that we were short with the budget that we inherited in January 2011. And we've got to this point because we live within our means. Government has got to run itself like a household. You can only live within your means. We can't spend out of control and tax out of control. In education, this House actually put more money in state dollars in education, counting the pay raise and additional funds we placed in the short session, than what we inherited in 2011. We're also going to be doing tax reform. We're going to be putting more money back in people's pockets so that they can invest it in the economy. That's how you grow it. Thank you.
Mr. Osborne.
I'm always amazed when a conservative starts a statement with how much the state or the nation is in debt before they explain to you how many taxes they cut. We cut the 3/4 cent sales tax. They gave us a $339 million tax break to people like me who are self-employed. Those tax breaks didn't go to you if you worked for Miller. What you got out of the tax break was higher tuition for your children. I got the money. Running a state is no different from running your house. If you walk into Food Line and you decide you want some cookies, you either decide to pay for them or leave them. We as a society have to make some choices. Do we want public education? Do we want affordable college? If so, we've got to pay for it. If not, can it? It's that simple. You will make that decision when you vote on November 6th.
Mr. Jones.
Thank you. I'm just going to build on what Dan Forrest and Brian Holloway have already said. As it's been stated, we basically inherited a financial disaster when we took office in 2011, the largest budget deficit in state history. We had just had an 8-year span of $6 billion tax increases, and I would suggest that if more taxing, more borrowing, and more spending were the answer, we would have solved our problems a long time ago. We've got to grow this economy by growing jobs. Businesses in this state tell us that they've not been competitive because we had the highest tax rate in the South and we had the highest, some of the worst regulations in the nation. The Nonpartisan Tax Foundation reported that North Carolina was one of the worst 10 states in the nation for businesses, for jobs, when it came to overregulation and high taxes. So we have worked to try to help businesses create jobs in this state. You've got to grow the pie. You don't need to divide and redistribute a smaller pie like our opponents want to do. You've got to grow the pie by growing the economy.
We will just briefly remind everybody of the quorum that we intend to keep tonight. Mr. Stanley.
Okay, thank you, sir. You know, as you look, the state of Massachusetts has got 6% unemployment, folks. Massachusetts is a northern state, and it's pretty liberal. Virginia's got 5.7% unemployment. It borders us. Something is wrong in the state of North Carolina. I said before, we need tax reform in this state. We have got a tax structure based on the 1930s manufacturing tax base. We are in a service type economy today. We have to do something about this. We have to broaden our tax base and keep it low enough in some things so we can compete with our competitors, whoever they may be. You've got to, you know, education's got to be funded at a reasonable level. No matter whether it's pre-kindergarten, kindergarten through 12, universities, community college, or whatever. If we don't have one, thank you.
I'm going to pivot over to the other side of our dais, and we are going to address this next question to our county commissioner candidates. And we'll start with Ms. Lawson. The question is, please state your views on the perception of our image as a county, both externally and internally. If elected, what would you do to help promote partnerships between the county organizations and other entities related to our image, both internally and externally?
We have a beautiful place. We have the water, we have the rivers, and we have the beautiful communities. And people love Rockingham County, but we have the reputation of being a bedroom community. We sleep here, we work outside of the county. But we can work with the chambers and work with economic development to bring jobs here by saying we have qualified people and that we are willing to work with them, and our people are ready to go to work.
Mr. Smith.
Right now, the Partnership for Economic Development and Tourism, from what I understand, isn't doing either economic development or tourism, and I think that's a problem. If we want to keep our natural resources and advertise those. I don't have a problem with that as long as we can do it in a fiscally responsible manner. Rockingham County is a beautiful county. There are just, when I look out our back door and our back porch at home, I see trees and I see an open field and I can hear the cows and smell what comes along with the cows, and I like that. And I like the rural feel of this county, and I think that's something that we can promote internally so that the people that live here will call their friends and relatives that live in other areas and say, hey, come visit us, come look at our rivers, come look out my back door and see the trees and see the grass and see the cows and smell what they have to offer.
Mr. Kallam.
Thank you. We are strategically located right here in the Piedmont area. Rockingham County is. We're endowed with a great capital, and we have a great workforce here. Today, we are really, truly blessed to have the workforce that we do have. They're very educated. They're more so now than ever before, and thanks to RCC. We have highway improvements that we are working on right now in the county that's going to help us bring development into our county. We're building a 4-lane highway on the western end of the county right now. And once that's completed, we expect and we look at other counties using us and coming in and coming up here and building and development. We've had counties come up here and companies that look at us, turn around and go back because of our infrastructure and our highways. We're changing that. And we've done all these things by pushing the development people with DOT and these things to work towards that. We have a lot of opportunities for regional collaboration with other counties where we can reduce our overall costs, provide you with the services and things we need, and still do it cheaper than we've done it in the past. We've got to look for outside the box. We can't think within that box no more. We've got to look for ideas and go outside that.
Mr. Richardson.
I think we need to focus on quality of life in all quadrants. I think we can have cosmopolitan opportunity in this county, but maintain a rural environment. I think it would be a fantastic situation if somebody asked, how are the schools in Rockingham County? And our citizens couldn't wait to tell them how good they were. And I believe that's possible by strong collaboration between the school board and our county government in the other sectors. I think we have fantastic resources. We need to promote nature trails, recreation opportunities, and rather than just sell our water, develop it for recreation and our personal use as well. And at the same time, we can do this while protecting our environment and being a bedroom community that maintains its own resources.
Mr. Duncan.
Well, I don't want to sound selfish when I say this, but I think we need to look after Rockingham County for a change. We saw what our friends at the South are trying to do to us with their trash. That's their problem, not ours. We got one of the best landfills in the state. We need to make sure it, and I understand it's been already taken care of, so that's a good thing. You know, we've got all this water we're talking about. We need to attract industries that use a lot of water. They pay the bills to the cities. That's what Eden needs right now. They need a major water user. Not only provides jobs, it provides a valuable resource for them. And we've tried working across the borders before. It didn't work so good. I'd say let's look after what we have, and we'll need it one day. Not for us, for our children. So,
Mr. Cardwell.
Well, as a county leader, and that's what I consider the county commissioners to be, as leaders of this county, you should be out promoting Rockingham County every chance you get, to bring jobs in here, to bring companies in here. And let me go on the record right now. I do not believe in corporate welfare. I don't believe in paying a corporation to come in here, because if they take money from you and move in here, guess what? Somebody else offers them money, they move out, pull the rug out from under you, and they're gone. So we've got to concentrate on helping the small business guy, the new entrepreneurs of society to come in and set up their small businesses. Guess what? They only hire 10 or 15 at a time. But you give me 50 companies that hire 20 people, I'll take it over one company that hires 1,000 people any day of the week. Thank you.
We now move to a new question. This question will be directed to the statewide and the Senate and the House candidates. We'll start with Mr. Osborne. And the question is, please share your views on funding for higher education, specifically as it pertains to community colleges and your perceived return on investment.
I've spent the last 27 years of my life creating hundreds of jobs in Rockingham County and adding millions of dollars to the tax base here. Job creation is not a theoretical concept to me. Our community colleges turn out the young people that we need to move into business. Businesses that look to community colleges such as Rockingham or to counties such as Rockingham, they can look all over the world. We have to fund our community colleges in order to be competitive with the rest of the world, let alone the rest of the United States and North Carolina. You have to have a reason for people to come. Our community colleges give business an opportunity for training. They give businesses an opportunity for the educational background of the students that we need here. You can't do that without funding these colleges. It's like I said before, if this is what you want to do, if you want to run a community college, you have to pay for it. It's that simple.
Mr. Jones.
We absolutely have to fund our community colleges. There's no doubt about that. I think we've covered that in at least one or two of our questions tonight. It's very important that we stay committed to educating our people. We understand that. 56% of our state budget goes towards education. We spend almost $12 billion a year in the state towards education. Nobody up here is advocating cutting out our community colleges. We believe in the community college. However, we cannot continue to go for more taxing, more spending, more borrowing, to continue to run up our debt and to continue to lose jobs in this state. If we're going to support our community colleges, we've already said it, we've got to grow our economy. We've got to recognize that our community colleges, education in general, does not exist in a vacuum. We are in troubled times in this country and in this state. Our opponents want to say that all that started with the new legislature, and we all know it's been going on for a long time.
And we'll move on to Mr. Stanley.
All right. According to the information I got here, we spent about $11 billion on education in this state, and that was some. I do think for higher education, what bothers me about government, it's all about a short-term fix. I believe we have to look at the long-term circumstances. And sometimes to get a short-term fix, we have to do some things we don't want to do. So I go right back to what I said just a while ago about our tax structure in this state is out of whack. We need to prop these things up or get reasonable funding. And when we do that, we need to work at a long-term solution so this will never happen to this state again. If we don't, it's going to be the same old mess somewhere down the road. Thank you.
Mr. Cole.
Well, I think, go back to what I said before. We've got to look at education as an investment. And whether you spread the cost of that out over years, that's the decision that has to be made by the leaders of the state. If we don't invest in education, there'll be someone else out there that will take those jobs. I worked on 3 projects when I was in the legislature, 3 companies that are here, and I worked with them, and the community college, in essence, was the reason they came. Weil McLean, Al Badd, and Al Canton. All of those came because of that great program we had of training those workers to do those jobs. So we've got to invest in it. How you get the revenue, if you want to cut something else, that's what you got to do, but you got to make that decision. And that's what we as the legislature have done in the past and will have to do in the future.
Mr. Holloway.
Thank you. Absolutely, this past legislature supported our education system from kindergarten through 12th grade to the community college system to the university system. That was one of our top priorities. But I remind you that we started out with a $3 billion hole, shortfall, funds we did not collect. The governor was very critical throughout the entire session of education, but her answer was a sales tax increase that only solved about half the problem. Where were we going to get the funds for the other half? Absolutely, we support our community colleges, and as I stated earlier, I worked hand in hand with Dr. Rawls, and we got them to their request. They told us what they had to have to function and to keep moving forward, and we got them there. On kindergarten through 12th grade, by the end of the biennium, the 2-year budget, more state money was going to them than before. That's what we're committed to doing, and as we move forward with this next legislature, we absolutely will stay committed to education.
Mr. Tedesco.
Well, I'm fundamentally convinced that our investments in education, both in the K-12 and the community college system, are critical. It's important. And that's why I'm running for this position, because I want to get the best for our children in the education and the opportunities they have for the future. But you have to make sure the investments you are making are wise investments that are producing sound results, and get more of the dollars we are spending into our classrooms, to our teachers, to our students. So, the idea that just pumping more money into bureaucracy in Raleigh is not the answer. When we have opportunity to get millions of dollars out of the Pink Palace, so to speak, and while I certainly didn't say make it condos, if I could make it condos and take that money and send that money from Raleigh's bureaucracy into the classrooms in Rockingham County, I would. And I think that would be a better way to use that money with our teachers in our classrooms across the state of North Carolina.
Mr. Forrest.
Well, we obviously can't continue to fund our higher ed universities and community colleges on the backs of the people of North Carolina, which we've been doing. When I went to college back in the 80s here in North Carolina, my tuition was about $650 a semester. I now have a son that's at UNC Chapel Hill, and we're paying $10,000 a semester. Our kids are going through college, creating, sometimes with $100,000 of debt by the time they come out with no job. So we have to be reasonable about that. As it relates to our, and we have a fine university system, I'll admit that. As it relates to the community colleges, I think that our community colleges are often the poor stepchild of the university systems, and our community colleges are the ones that are in the communities reaching out to a huge number of people. Almost 100,000 students are served at Central Piedmont Community College in Charlotte. So we need to make sure that the money is spent in the right places, and we need to make sure that we are have equal voice between the university systems and the community college system.
Thank you, everyone. Now we're going to move to audience questions. I will remind everyone that these questions were submitted in writing from members of the audience, and we'll begin with a question for the county commissioner candidates. Please share your #1 goal and the specific steps you plan to implement. I'm sorry, let me read this again. Please share your #1 goal and the specific steps you plan to take to implement your goals successfully. And why don't we just start here on the end and work our way around?
Okay, my #1 goal as county commissioner is to make this county business friendly so we can draw the companies in to put the people to work. One way that we're going to have to do that is through our community college system, with creating the environment that will allow the businesses to come in here. Another thing is some of the regulations. We're going to have to work with the state leaders to cut some of these regulations that handcuff companies from being able to start up a business. I've had a lot of experience with this in the past year. And I've worked with 4 different companies that are now in Rockingham County, but it was like pulling IT when it comes to the regulations and all the everything that the county put up in front of you. And then they tell you, you know, 25 jobs is not big enough. And I wanted to ask them, I said, what 25 families do you want to go out there and tell them they don't matter? You know, you build small businesses a little at a time.
Years ago, we used to have an organization called Committee of 100, which was business leaders throughout the county that worked together along with the county and the municipalities to bring industry to the county, and I would say they were quite successful. And I'd like to maybe take a look at that again and try to get some community involvement in it. So like I mentioned earlier, we have sites ready for new industry in the county that's available in all parts of the county. And some of the industry we have, I know it's a challenge to retain industry we do have, but some of our companies have support industry that revolve around them, and we need to reach out to them and make sure that they take a serious look at Rockingham County before they locate somewhere else. And I definitely think we need to reach out to our existing industries, and thank you.
I believe that one of the things that we need to look at today is to remember we have to look out for the citizens of Rockingham County. Today we're providing all the services and things to you that just like you have been always used to. Your fire department, your emergency EMS systems, your 911 system, the sheriff's department, and all of them today function very well. We cut $5.2 million out of the budget this past year. And believe me, I wore a calculator out to do that. And it took me a better part of 3 days to figure out a lot of things, but we made it work. And we did it for the people of this county. We have to work diversively to make sure we provide you with the services and things that are important to developing your life. We've got to work to make sustainable communities and develop it and bring people into our county. We lost our tax base in our industrial end of it. Today, the burden is on the taxpayers and on the property owners. We're taking that off. I cut your tax rate this past year and voted for it. And next year, I intend to work for it again. Because I tell you what, my property taxes are too high and yours are too. I don't like it any better than you do, and I work very hard to get it down to that level. Thank you.
And before we move to the next respondent, something I was remiss in not doing in my introductory remarks is just to remind everyone, if you haven't done it already, if you could switch off your cell phone before we continue. Thank you very much.
Each of us want economic development with new jobs, and we know that we must work with all of the municipalities to get them to work together and to help to improve the relationship. And we will work very closely with our community college to make sure that all of our citizens are educated and will be qualified when new jobs come into the area.
Well, my number one priority is economic health and quality of life at the same time, and I think they go hand in hand because they create a synergy that draws business, that gives us jobs. I think it's obvious that we're almost all here agreed about the value of community college, but also secondary schools need to be an important criteria in developing this synergistic approach to quality of life and economic growth. We can't help but be constantly aware of safety issues, public safety, fire, emergency response, police services, security. If they're not there, nobody's going to want to be part of our environment as well. And I think collaboratively working on these sort of things so that we're all part of the school system, the governmental system, and the private sector is the way to go at this.
My number one concern, and you've heard it from a few of the other candidates, is taxes. I know a gentleman in this county, and I personally know him, and he told me a couple weeks ago that he pays a 1 month's salary to pay his property taxes in Rockingham County. That's crazy, folks. Nobody should pay 1/12 of their income and give it to the government for the government to just spend however they see fit. We need to address our budget issues. We need to talk to the county department heads and find out what they can do in their departments to cut wasteful spending. We also need to get people to work and get them off of social programs. That's another big issue that I have. And I do believe that the county can do that, and I believe they can do it effectively, and I think that we can be successful with that.
Our next question is directed at everyone. Children's earliest experiences determine how their brains are wired, lay the groundwork for future health, and form the foundation of the social and emotional skills needed for academic and workplace success. What are your priorities for our young children? And why don't we work our way from this end down? We'll start with you, Mr. Forrest.
Okay, great. Well, as I mentioned, I'm a homeschool dad. I have 4 kids. One of the things that I have certainly learned over the last 16 years of homeschooling our kids is that every child learns differently. We have unique gifts and talents, and they have unique ways of learning. And we have created an education system in America that is trying to produce widgets, all the same, standard curriculum, standardization of everything. And I believe we're at a time, for the first time in our nation's history, where technology allows us to create curriculums that are unique to every child. And so I believe that we need to get out of the mode of education where we are treating our children like widgets and create a system that allows our teachers and allows our school administrators to create a curriculum to identify what the kids' individual students' needs are.
Well, I certainly agree with Dan, and as I've said that a moment ago, we have to get out of this one-size-fits-all education model and begin to look at our children as individuals and look at our communities with different unique needs, those needs that don't necessarily need to be dictated from Raleigh and certainly shouldn't be dictated from Washington. You know, when I know for myself, with my wife Jenny and I, when we look at our children and their education and what we want for them, we know we need to do better. We need to do better. And it needs to start with getting back to basics in our K-12 model. You can't just pass kids along if they can't read. We have to end social promotions. We have to make sure that we engage our communities once again, bring in our community partners, bring in strong communities. We have to empower parents once again so that they can be active partners in the education with their children. And I think we have to go a little further. You got to get these bureaucrats out of the classrooms so our teachers can teach. Right now, we've seen more of our time for our teachers wasted jumping through hoops from Raleigh and Washington than they ever have before. So we have to empower our teachers as well.
It takes a mom and dad from day one to be successful. Unfortunately, we live in a country where we've got a divorce rate about 50%. In this county, in 2010, 59% of all babies were born on Medicaid. That means probably a parent was missing, they weren't married or whatever. That's the reason why early childhood development is so important. If we don't prepare our young people to start school, we're not going to be winners. They go in there not prepared, and the first thing you know, they're struggling. When they turn 16 years old, they drop out. Human services in this county is the #1 thing on the budget. The only way you can correct that is to prepare the young people to go to school. Thank you.
I think the best way I can respond to this is talk about early childhood education, is talk about my wife, Libby, and our youngest grandchild, who's now 6. But she started reading to her because my daughter was a teacher. She went back to school. My wife kept her, and she read to her daily, even when she was just a little thing. Today, her most recent score we heard on her reading test was she should be at a level C. She was at a level H. That is a testimony to growing children today with a good education. It's got to start early, and the more we invest in early childhood education, the fewer problems we will have at the out end.
On Saturday of last week, I met with a lady who volunteered in a kindergarten class. On the first day the student came in, the teacher said, "Hold up the blue crayon." The child had no idea what the blue crayon was. We expect schools to take that child from understanding what a blue crayon is up to understanding what mitochondrial DNA is. I'm a licensed psychologist, and I understand the absolute critical nature of getting children educated early. Having said that, problems are not isolated to single events. If a parent doesn't have a job, you probably don't have the things the child needs at home. It's all tied, it's all related, and it is anything but simple, and it does not lend itself to a one-minute answer.
I can say that first it starts at home. That's the place where it all starts. But I can tell you as an educator, we know that children, if they are not reading by the 3rd grade, they're going to have difficulties from then on out. Representative Jones and I this past session worked with our Health and Human Services chairs to try to get funds to the early childhood education needed. We also worked to try to put in a literacy program, which we're still working on, to try to help kids get the things that they need to get them to where they should be by the 3rd grade. But again, as I stated, it starts with the parents. It starts at home. It starts with mamas and daddies reading to their kids as they go to bed at night. And we've got to work and find a way to get parents more involved in their education.
You know, children are a gift from God. And it's our God-given right and responsibility to raise our children. And we have a responsibility in our community as well. And I know everybody on this stage and everybody in both parties loves our children, wants to see our children grow, wants to build stronger families. The question we have to ask in this election, from the State House to the White House and all points in between, is our answer lie in bigger government, more taxing, more spending, more borrowing, more government control, less parental choices? You know, when we talk about education, when I talk about education, I talk about students, teachers, and students. Students, parents, and teachers. When our opponents talk about education, they talk about a bureaucracy, a government, more money, more spending that we don't have. Once again, our minute is up, and I will agree it does lend itself to much more than a minute to answer the question.
We need more local control in our schools and our education. In my opinion, I believe that the parents know more about how to educate their children than some bureaucrat in Raleigh does. And the only way to get that done to where we can get the local control that we need so we can educate our children is by electing Pat McCrory, Dan Forrest, and John Tedesco, along with Brian Holloway and Burt Jones. I stand with these men on their education beliefs because I know they have the interest of our children at heart. We need to promote charter schools, we need to promote private schools, and we need to promote home schools because competition is healthy, competition is good. If you had one restaurant in your neighborhood that you could eat at, and that's the only place you could eat, you better hope you got a good place to eat. Competition's healthy, it works in the private industry, and it works in education.
Well, I think I'm the only school principal up here. The number one priority in my school and any school should be safety of the kids. Now, I love to be lauded for academic performance by our youngsters, but you got to take care of the health and safety of those youngsters, number one. Then you can move on to collaborative sort of work. I will agree with sort of what's been said, having spent the best part of 2 years in Washington, I can assure you those folks do not have an idea what your priorities are here. And I think the setting of local priorities, the insurance of safety is the starting point, only the starting point, so that we can accentuate that with better development in curriculum, better assets, better trained teachers, and those tools that will take our youngsters to the top of the heap.
As an educator, I too can say children learn differently, but their minds are an open book and they'll grasp so much information. And as parents, we definitely must take part in how we educate our children. We may not know all about the algebra and the geometry and all the new things that they are talking about in schools today, but we can listen. My mom and my dad didn't go very far in school, but at nighttime when it was time for homework, she would always say, I will listen to what you got to say. And sometimes just somebody being there for support is so important.
Today, our children that starting to the kindergarten, going through the third grade, they have to reach a certain level of educational abilities by the time they finish that third grade. And today, they're aggressively pursuing that through our schools to make sure that our children reach that level. We don't want to leave any children behind, and no child can be left behind. The greatest asset we have in our whole county and is our educated workforce. If we're armed with education, we can defeat ignorance any day of the week. Today, we need to develop an effective partnership and work with the Board of Education in the county here to make sure that we continue to improve the quality of education for our students and our families. Today, if the people who come to look at us today, they're going to look for the educated kids and the family. We've lost companies to other states and other areas because we didn't have our children educated in the nanosciences and the technologies that they're looking for. When these consultants come in and they look at what we're doing and where we're going, they want to make sure that they don't have to spend millions of dollars to get what they need here. They want a workforce that's going to be able to comply with what they need. We're going to have to start this at the very basics in schools. Thank you.
Well, having helped raise 2 children along with my wife, we learned along the way there's a lot of children that do get left behind and alone in the process. And, you know, I guess my answer is sort of simple. You know, thank goodness for the volunteers that come along to help. And, you know, I think our children was raised in public schools, and I thought they received an excellent education, and we tried to be with them every step of the way. But I think if we're going to spend so much tax money on early childhood education, I think there ought to be some type of requirement to make at least one parent be involved with them along the way and to know what their child is doing. So.
Well, I agree with Brian over there. It starts at home. You take those children when they're really young, and that's when they're the most impressionable. And you've got to start teaching them respect, what the word no means, integrity. You know, if a 5-year-old says, you tell him to do something and he don't do it, you got to know there's consequences for it. Because guess what? If he grows up not realizing there's consequences for anything, it's too late when he gets in high school. And what happens when he gets in high school and he has no respect for authority or no respect for himself? You know where he's going to wind up? He's going to wind up here, out here on the street or down here with Mr. Page 1. So it's a parent's responsibility to start them out young. Teach them. I know we love our kids, but sometimes you have to give them a little bit of tough love so they can learn. Thank you.
Thank everybody for answering that question. Now we're going to zero in on some specific candidates. This next question is for NC House and Senate candidates, and for our purposes here, why don't we start with Mr. Jones and work our way down to this end. The question is, will each of you discuss, each of you has discussed that you need funding to implement plans. Where do you see these funds coming from? And it has here, doesn't have a question mark, it just has taxes. So I'm not quite sure. It may be there may be a question mark missing, so I'll ask it. Taxes?
The money comes from the people in this room. They come from the people in this county, the working people of this state. And we need to be looking out for our taxpayers, quite honestly. Folks, these are critical times. Our government is on an unsustainable path. We are spending our children's future. We don't have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem. We have the money is there. As I said earlier, we need to be creating jobs. We need to be growing the pie rather than redistributing a smaller pie. Now, as I said, in this state, we've been through the tax increases. We had the billion-dollar tax increases throughout the last decade. Our budget was exploding. We inherited a $3 billion budget deficit. Unfortunately, some people just can't tax enough, can't borrow enough, and can't spend enough. We've got to learn to manage our limited resources, priority spend, just like you do in your household or in your business.
You can never, ever tax your way back into prosperity. Particularly when the economy is down and unemployment is high, you're never going to do it. The way we're going to grow these funds that we need for planning, to answer the question, is we have to grow the economy. And we're going to do that by investing in the people, allowing you to have more of your money to spend. We need to do things like lowering the gas tax further. We need to lower the income tax. We've got to put more money in your pockets. We've got to live within our means. That's what this election is going to be all about. Continuing down the path of living within our means, being responsible, or going back to the days of old where we spent out of control, 10% above population inflation growth, budgets which I never ever supported.
In 2001, we passed the Bush tax cuts that were going to send money to the job creators. In 2003, we passed additional tax cuts to send money to the job creators. In 2010, we passed tax cuts to send money to the job creators. It's time to fire the job creators and hire people that really can create jobs. The budget that they're talking about, they passed it in 2010. It's not working. You don't create jobs from the supply side. Jobs are created from the demand side. I don't care how many cookie factories you put out on the street. Until somebody wants to buy a cookie, you're not going to sell cookies. Our problem is growth. They're absolutely right about that. The problem is they're not using tax cuts in a targeted, laser-like fashion to the people who can create jobs. If you want to give jobs and tax credits together, give the tax credits to the people who really create jobs and not the ones who buy a boat.
You know, there isn't a lot I could add to that, what William had to say, but I think it points to the question, how many people up here, sitting here at the table, have run a business, and you have to make decisions like that. Where are you going to spend your money? Where are you going to create your revenue? How are you going to do that? Because if you don't, you're going to be out of business. Likewise, the state needs to do that. The question is, where do you cut? You want to cut justice and public safety? Or do you want to cut the highway patrol? You pick out the ones you want to cut if you want to invest in education more. 70% of the people said leave the 3/4 cent sales tax on. Now, I'm not an advocate for that sales tax. I'm an advocate for a streamlined, better-run organization, which the legislature ought to be getting in the middle of and making it happen.
Can you hear me? Again, I'll come right back with unemployment at 9.6% in this state vote. If we could get it down to 6%, we'd have no problem funding our education system or whatever. Again, Massachusetts has got a 6% tax rate. Bristol Squibb Myers was heavily recruited 5-6 years ago to the Sanford area. They chose Massachusetts. It wasn't over corporate tax, I can tell you that. It was about something else, probably labor skills, MIT, Hartford, or whatever. And I'll go right back to what he said. In 2011, a tax break for the first $50,000 were given to small business. Out of that tax break, if they would have cut that off at $100,000, $141 million would have been saved to promote education. I know it's not a whole lot, but it's a good starting point. I don't think wealthy doctors need a break, or lawyers.
Now we move to our next question from the floor. This is directed in even a more focused fashion to Mr. Jones. Do you support prohibiting counties and cities from extending broadband internet? What impact does that have on rural areas?
Can you repeat that question?
And I'm sorry, it's did you support prohibiting counties and cities from extending broadband internet, and what impact does that have on rural areas?
I did vote for a bill that did not support the idea that certain cities in this state were competing with private business. And they shouldn't be doing so whenever private businesses were already providing those services. I do believe there are times whenever, for instance, and it did not affect our county, it did not affect rural areas like our county or areas where broadband was not being provided. So the premise of the question, I think, is a little bit off. But I will say in general, and I only have a few seconds to say it, government doesn't need to be competing with businesses. Government needs to be helping businesses. We need to be helping businesses create jobs. Government doesn't create jobs. Government creates an environment where businesses can create jobs. That's how we'll grow our economy.
Next question from the floor is for Mr. Holloway. A single vote can change the course of history, especially in a republic. How do you justify your yes vote on clincher that allowed hydraulic fracturing in North Carolina?
Well, first let me say that I voted no to fracking on every single vote on the House floor, every time. And what you're referring to as the clincher is a vote that just simply establishes the vote that the body made. 60 seconds, I couldn't tell you the story, but Representative Carney made a misvote. She wanted to change her vote. The House rules clearly state that you cannot change your vote if it changes the outcome of the vote. That's what the rules say. Our predecessors didn't always follow the rules, but we did. But on fracking, I voted no because I didn't agree with the property rights piece of the bill. I didn't agree with the speed that it was moving forward. But as far as the yes vote, the way I saw that, it was solidifying that I was voting no, and I had no intention of changing my vote.
Our next question from the floor takes us back to the House and Senate candidates. And what we'll do is we'll start with you, Mr. Stanley, and work our way down. The Democrats and Governor Perdue were very critical of the Republican budget. The governor proposed a sales tax increase that covered less than 1/2 of the shortfall. Would you have supported the sales tax increase proposed by the governor?
I don't know whether I would have or not. I'll just be honest with you. I believe in efficiency too. As I look at things, you know, I like a long-term outlook. I know short-term we need to shore things up, but long-term we need to fix this thing where it functions, where we can be competitive and get the job done. But on that tax issue, I was not there. I don't know exactly what I would have done if I had been there. And that's not a good answer, I don't guess.
Well, I was not there either, so I don't guess I could make that decision. I think, first of all, before I would vote for any tax increase, I would look for another source for the income. And there are plenty of places where you can go to get that pocket of money if you need it to make that balanced budget. But number one, you got to remember, and I said this, education is an investment. And how you get there is a decision that has to be made by all the people. Now, if it has to be made by the people in total throughout the state, then you put a referendum on the ballot. Where do you want to go with education? But number one, it's an investment, and we need to invest in education. Many school board members here, I'm looking at 2 of them right now, and I know you say we need to invest, but the question would be to you too, would you raise taxes to make it happen?
Taxes is a funny thing. They're on your cell phone bill, they're on your cable bill, they're everywhere around you. It's not just a matter of income tax. I think we have to look for efficiencies in whatever pursuit we're doing. We have to look for what works. Having said that, I can't tell you what I would have done on it until I've had an opportunity to see the entire budget and know where there are inefficiencies. Part of our problem right now in solving any problem the state or federal government has is that we are being absolutely eaten alive with special interest money that's pulling every politician in every direction. If we don't solve the special interest money, we'll never solve our bigger problems. And those two things are not unrelated.
Well, obviously, I am against the tax increase because I did not vote for it. And I find it interesting that our opponents are waffling around that they didn't know without looking at the budget. Well, my opponent voted for the tax increase to begin with before he was defeated in the last election. And I guarantee you he would have joined forces with every member of his party and voted no to our budget. Now, we did have a few that voted with it to override the governor's veto, and I don't think he would have been one of those. But we've got to live within our means, and these other pockets of revenue and sources they're talking about, I'd love to know where they're at. That was our question. We kept asking, well, if you don't want us to make this cut or that cut, tell us how to get it. Their only answer was sales tax, taxes that we cannot collect when the economy is down. Had we spent that additional money, when you opened up your newspaper in January, I guarantee you, you'd be reading about the shortfall of funds that the state had.
The session before the new Republican majority took office, North Carolina was mired in the worst recession that we have been in since the Great Depression. We had record high unemployment, record high bankruptcies, record high foreclosures. The legislature's answer was to raise taxes by $1.3 billion. Now, at the time, the governor tried to say, well, a lot of this is just going to be a temporary tax increase. In 2 years, it'll be gone. So she was for that before she was against it. We'd hear about these other pots of money. Well, the pots of money were depleted. We're talking about the Highway Trust Fund, the Rainy Day Fund, all these dedicated funds in Raleigh that have been depleted. We owe the federal government $2.7 billion plus interest that we borrowed from them for unemployment insurance. You see, Washington borrows the money from China so we can borrow the money from them. So we are continuing to work our way out of a hole. We've maxed out our debt, the treasurer has told us that, and we can't borrow anymore.
We will now move to closing statements from the candidates. Each candidate has an allotment of 90 seconds to make your closing statement. We will begin with the county commissioner candidates, and Mr. Duncan will start.
Well, once again, I would ask you on election day if you could consider me for serving another term on the commissioners. I'd be very grateful, but like I said, I've served 12 years before, and I felt like I gave it 100% while I was there. I know I tried to answer a lot of the calls of the people. I was called on a lot for different issues, different problems. They probably didn't even relate to being a commissioner, but people expect you to help them when they have a problem. And I had to vote. You know, it's a tough job. You have to make tough decisions. Sometimes it's not popular with the public. I mean, it's no secret. I voted for 2 or 3 tax increases. I had to vote for one when we lost our local reimbursement money from the state that rightfully was our money we never got back. So we had to offset that cost. Before I left, I voted to set up the funds to build a new courthouse. The jail wasn't a part of it, but the courthouse was, because our employees were working in conditions that I don't think anybody here would want to be in. And I think you can all think of how the security was out there with all the entry points in a 100-year-old courthouse. Our mental health program was disassembled That was a disaster. We had one of the best in the state. That's the kind of decisions you have to make. But I can guarantee you, if I get elected, I'll do the best job I possibly can, and I'll give it 100%. I'm not running against anybody here. I'm just trying to win to do the job for the citizens. Thank you.
Mr. Kallam?
I think we need to promote a safe and caring environment here. And we have excellent educational opportunities here for our citizens and our people. I think we need to empower our citizens and things to become more involved in what we're doing here today. I've talked to several people all over the county, and I said, listen, how many of you have you come to visit us, and how many's come to a county commissioner meeting? Very few of them do. We need people to become more involved in our government and what we're doing in the government. You need to come and look at what we're doing. I want you to call me and ask me and tell me what you think. Ask me what we're doing on things and how we're working it out and what we are making progress at. And look at what we are doing. I want people to become interested. We can transform our government and change it around to fit what we need to make it work for the citizens of our county. You have a good opportunity to do just that and work it in that, to engage our citizens of things in a productive way to where we can change our government. I worked and voted real hard to make sure that we kept our landfill in our county because it's one of the greatest assets we have. I looked at all the assets and things we have around our county, and I've worked to keep them here for the people of our county. We've got to make sure that we protect ourselves, work for the people, and to make sure we keep an excellent educational opportunity for our children, because they're the greatest asset we have, and we have to look for these things, as well as making sure we provide for the common services and things here. We can't leave out and make sure that if you have a heart attack or a fire, that you do have somebody respond. It's my job to make sure you have that. Thank you.
Ms. Lawson.
If I'm fortunate enough to earn your support for County Commissioner, I will base my service on common sense. We have the people, the quality environment, and a great location to achieve our vision. Our county must move forward, and we need leadership to do this. As your County Commissioner, I promise to be accessible and responsible. Thank
you. Mr. Cardwell.
Folks, if I'm elected as a county commissioner, I'm going over there to serve you, the people, the taxpayers of this county. We've heard a lot of problems identified here all across this whole panel tonight. But what we've got to have is real solutions to these problems. The answer is so simple, it's right in front of our faces. We have to broaden our tax base. We're looking for places where we got to cut this, we got to cut that, or we got to raise taxes. Broaden the tax base. Bring those businesses in. You're going to have to deregulate. You're going to have to bite the bullet and probably cut some taxes on businesses so they want to come here. I don't want businesses to have to do like Governor Perdue earlier this year gave a like $18 million incentive for Honda Jet, another $18 million for Chiquita. Look, those are large corporations. They already got the money. They didn't need it. That's just free money of the taxpayers' money as an incentive for them to come here. If they go to move, a large corporation goes to move, they've already allocated the money to make that move, no matter where it lands up. So they're just taking bids from the highest bidder, and that's money that goes to their bottom line. And $18 million for 800 jobs, that ain't a lot. Give Rockingham County $18 million and we can create 5,000 jobs.
Mr. Richardson.
Thank you. You know, times are tough, especially right here in Rockingham County with our high unemployment. But I still think this is a county of opportunity. I think we have some immediate issues facing us. They've been dealt with some tonight. They'll be dealt with some in the future. But perhaps the biggest issue that we're going to face has not yet been identified. And so the challenge for you and the rest of the electorate is to look at us as candidates and see who you can trust to deal with those situations. Now, I have some experience in business. I have some experience in government, in education, in agriculture. And I promise to bring those experiences in a positive way to help identify and then solve these various problems, including the ones that haven't come up yet. And by the way, if you need a 7-megaton device on Tehran in the middle of the night, I'm probably the only guy here that can do it.
Mr. Smith.
I'll keep that in mind, Mark. This election is probably the most critical election in my lifetime. And I'm out talking to people, and a lot of people are talking about the presidential race. That's important, but so is the county commissioner race. The three people that you select to represent you on the Board of Commissioners are the ones that really affect your daily life on a day-to-day basis. When you go to the polls, sure, you're going to be thinking about who you want to elect for president, Congress, governor, all the way down. But you really need to look at your county commissioners. Because when we make a decision, that affects you today. And you need to look at all the candidates and determine what style of government you want. I'll tell you the style of government that I believe in. I believe the government that governs least governs best. And that has been proven throughout our republic for the last 225 years. It works on the local level just as well as it works anywhere else. I can assure you, Mr. Cardwell mentioned it earlier, that he wouldn't vote for corporate welfare. Neither will I. I don't think that government needs to just dole money out. I think we need to rein in spending, we need to rein in taxes, and that there will increase our economy. You need to look at all 6 candidates and make the decision as to who you feel will represent you the best in November. I hope I'm one of those choices that you make.
We'll move now to NC Senate 26, Mr. Stanley.
Okay. Jobs and education, the environment and infrastructure is very important, folks. We've got to address these issues. They have been on this bandwagon for the last 2 years. Unemployment's still 9.6%. It's the 5th highest in this country. We need to fix our tax structure to where we can be competitive. We have to compete with the world, the global economy. We've got to compete with these other states too. And we need to look at our educational needs for our children from early childhood, especially early childhood through higher education. We need to make sure our community colleges and universities have the resources to function effectively. Research and development is a must in all fields. New York invested heavy. It was $900 million, and it was prior to 2009, April 2009, in nanotechnology, and had $13 billion worth of private investment. It does work. I'm not insinuating we put $900 million in it. We need to make sure we get things right with our environment. This would include fracking. But folks, this is serious. People can bore right under your house or whatever. This state, and some of this is coming from your newspaper, so I don't want you on my case. This state has many good things going for it. Natural resources, climate, highways, airports, good university system, workforce. Unemployment in this state is 9.6%. So if this problem's not corrected, all our other problems will get worse. Thank you.
Now we'll move to House 65, and we'll begin with Mr. Osborne.
On my opponent's website, he says he supports a tax plan that would do away with the income tax and replace it with a consumption tax that would be in the 20 to 30% range. While this would be an offsetting change to some people, to Mitt Romney it would be a boom, but the problem is, to the senior citizens, this would be a regressive and very burdensome hardship. Now, I'm not bringing this up to trash my opponent. What I'm bringing this up to point out is we have an honest disagreement of opinion. I believe that policy has to be carefully thought out, not only for the long term, but for the short term. I don't think there is a bad person up here. I think we have differences of opinion, and I think that's why your vote is critical this year. I believe we have potential here, but I believe we also have to start moving in a direction of fairness and I said it before, I will say it again, the most difficult problems this nation has facing it cannot be resolved without the money being taken out of politics and the special interest influence put aside. We will never get to the real solutions until that happens. Thank you.
Mr. Jones.
Thank you. Friends, our government is leading us down an unsustainable path. Now, Phil Berger, Brian Holloway, and myself believe in a government that would operate like your family or your business and do its best while spending within its means. We cannot continue to mortgage and spend our children's future. More taxing, more borrowing, and more spending are not the answer, but not only that, we must not trade in our liberties and our freedoms for a society where government redistributes our resources, where government decides the winners and losers in business and who gets the jobs, where government decides where your children should go to school and what they should be taught, and on and on. You know, in the last decade, our state legislature spent $3 billion in taxpayer money to create 300 net new jobs. Very, 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 very little of that came to Rockingham County. 2 years ago, we inherited a financial disaster in our state, the worst budget deficit in history, the highest taxes in our region, the worst unemployment, record bankruptcies and foreclosures, more problems than we have time to list. And our opponents answer, more taxes, more borrowing, more spending. We can do better in our state. We don't have to be near the worst in unemployment, in education, in taxes, and overspending. We did make some modest improvements this past session because a small handful of moderate Democrats helped us to override the least popular governor in the country. I ask that you stand with us, vote for Phil Berger, Brian Holloway, and myself. And I'm Burt Jones. Thank you for the opportunity, and God bless you.
NC House, District 91, Mr. Cole.
I think you'll see the differences in the way we want to take the state from what's been said so far. Number one, we got the fifth, in the last census, the fifth largest increase percentage-wise in population, and in raw numbers, we were sixth out of all the states. You don't wait for the need for infrastructure. You have to plan for it. Planning time right now on the road is about 10 to 12 years. That's from concept to riding on it. That's unfortunate. But at the same time, there are a lot of requirements that have to be met. EPA, those kind of things. Education. Folks, we're headed down a different path there. There are proposals right now to fund virtual schools, K-12, which is a corporation that owns schools, which is now under investigation in the state of Florida for malfeasance and those kind of things. And in addition, there's a breakdown in what's taking place in our education budget. That's unfortunate. And where it's going, nobody knows at this point in time. But I suggest that you take and get a copy of the Constitution and read it. That's the source document that talks about education.
Mr. Holloway.
First, let me thank the Chamber of Commerce and Community College and our moderator for being here tonight. Let me thank every citizen who sat in here for coming out and participating in our government, and my family and wife for being here. Folks, this election boils down to one simple issue. Do you want to continue on the path that this legislature, this session, set our state on, to live within our means, run our government like you run your household, or do you want to go back to the way government was run 140 years before us? They had the reins for 140 years of spending out of control, taxing out of control, and borrowing out of control. It's that simple. This legislature invested in education. This legislature invested in small businesses, gave them the first break they had ever had in state history, and it's going to grow jobs because they're going to spend that money. They're going to buy more, somebody's going to make more, and we're going to grow jobs by doing that. Folks, again, it's very simple. Just thank you for coming out and being here. Be happy to answer any questions anyone may have. I have a website. You can just Google my name and find it. But thank you and God bless you and appreciate you coming out.
And our candidate for Lieutenant Governor, Mr. Forrest.
Well, thank you for having me this evening, and thank you for your patience tonight and sticking with this forum and listening to these candidates and doing what I believe is our duty as Americans. I believe that this is our generation's 1776. And I believe we're at a great tipping point in America, and we're going to decide, starting in October, leading up to November 6th, whether we save the great American experiment that even many of you have fought for and so many have died for in the history of our great nation, or are we going to tip over into socialism or worse in this nation? I think that's what is on the line right now, and I think we're here because we have a leadership crisis in North Carolina at the executive level. We have a leadership crisis in America, and it's time for bold, courageous, visionary leaders to step up and face the challenges that we have in our state. As I mentioned, my background is architecture. I'm a visionary, I'm a planner, I'm a creative problem solver, consensus builder. Those are the skills that I want to take to Raleigh to help solve the challenges that we have here in our state. I think this is very important. I've worked hard to go out and meet the people of North Carolina. I've been to all 100 counties, many of them many times. I've traveled over 170,000 miles over the last year and a half to meet the people of North Carolina and see what the issues are. And so it's already been mentioned, but we're 44th in the nation in business tax climate. That's not good enough. 5th highest unemployment rate in the nation. That's not good enough for North Carolina. I believe we need to set a course to be the #1 best state for business in the nation if we want to see our state grow. And we need to understand that we have a very clear choice in this election. My business background, holding the gavel in the Senate come January 13, or my opponent, who is a lifelong bureaucrat and is supported by the unions. We need to make sure that North Carolina remains a right-to-work state, keep union influence out of our state, and I will fight for that as your Lieutenant Governor.
For Superintendent of Public Instruction, Mr. Tedesco.
Again, I'm honored to be here with all of you tonight, and I'm here because I know all the answers don't come out of Raleigh. They can't come out of Raleigh. We have to get out of our bureaucracies in Raleigh and get out to our local communities. And I know right now we have a real challenge with the state of education in North Carolina, and I think our children deserve better. In this election, there has never been a clearer choice for this position. My current opponent, who's a nice enough person, has been in the Department of Public Instruction as a superintendent for 8 years, and prior to that has been in that Pink Palace, in that bureaucracy since 1976. All the same unions that Dan just highlighted are supporting the status quo as well in this race, but I don't believe that is good enough anymore. Again, today we've seen the results of that kind of leadership. 1 in 5 in our children are not graduating. 2/3 of our children who do graduate need remediation. 1/3 of our children cannot read on grade level. Our schools have run amok. We are 4th in the country in suspensions. We need to make a change. If you always do what you've always done, you will always get what you've always got. So I will tell people clearly, if you like the state of education in North Carolina, the quality you're seeing, do not vote for me. But if you want somebody who is a conservative Christian family man, who has children in our public schools, and who's willing to roll up his sleeves and fight for our children, our taxpayers, our local control, then you need to get out there and make a change and vote John Tedesco. So I thank you for your time. We've laid out a bold vision on our website because I grew up in Sunday school class and I learned where there's no vision, men will perish. We don't have a lot of time to get into that tonight, but you can learn more about us there. Thank you very much.
Just a few seconds to thank everybody, to thank our candidates for taking time to share their views, to thank our audience for taking time to hear those views and to make informed decisions in the coming election. And we really appreciate, this is a great turnout and this was a very good forum. I learned a lot myself. Now I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Helmick to make some final remarks.
Thank you, Alan. And I'm going to add my thanks. First off, I want to thank our moderator and our timekeeper. You maybe didn't get to see from back there, but holding up those little flags is is kind of an interesting view from up here. Thanks to the Chamber and the RCC staff who helped us tonight. You all did a great job. We really appreciate the work that you've done. I want to thank the audience. You guys did a great job. I appreciate the respect with which you treated our candidates. I hope that you gained a lot from this. We appreciate you being here on the RCC campus. We hope that you'll come back to some of our future events, and please don't be a stranger out here. But I also especially want to thank our candidates who are behind me here. You guys did a great job, guys and ladies. All did a great job. We appreciate the well-thought-out answers that you provided. I appreciate the kind words that you said that you had for the community college, and we appreciate your support both in the past and in the future. And thank you again for that. I also want to remind you that the school board candidates will be outside in the hall where there will be refreshments, so you can have refreshments and talk to those school board candidates. And as you spend a few more minutes in this evening. Make sure you have those questions ready for those folks. I would also do one final thing before you go. I would urge you all to get out there and vote at the upcoming election and all future elections. Thank you for being with us this evening. I hope to see you out here again. Thank you.